Okay, welcome back. We're happy Chapa. So today we're going to talk about reprogramming. Reprogramming in here. So all this here can function in a better way for who we are, or who we want to be at least. And so with that, I've got my juggling balls. Which brings me to why I started juggling. What was my reasons? And this you should note for oneself in things that you can do to help create new neural linkways, new telomeres extending to new neural links within the brain to the body. And in this, what you will find is this pathway of learning can teach people to heal. Now, I haven't looked into depths of helping others to heal with it, in the sense of maybe you have no function in your hand, but how you can regrow brain cells, a new neural pathway to get that hand to work again. Just because one pathway that is linked to the body has stopped the hand from functioning, that doesn't mean that you can't create a new pathway for that hand to function again. And so how we simplify that is bringing it down to learning how to do things that we can't do. So we create new neural pathways. And some of the most popular is that helps create these pathways to use our brain in a more functional way is the likes of learning a language. Now, for me, I find it hard to sit down and study something unless I get a real urge within me. Especially things that relate back to school, where you're reading or writing. School wasn't something for me. And so anything that relates to school, it's hard to progress forward into that way of learning. And so another thing that I've learned is to do things opposite to everything that you do. And so if you write with your left hand, you would learn to write with your right hand. If I go to get up on this seat and I put my left foot forward, I'd learn to use my right foot to put forward. And so everything would become reflected onto the other side of the body, so to speak. And so you're growing new neural pathways. And obviously this is on an outside view, I haven't went into the depths of it, but if you're managing your brain in this way, and say your hand isn't functioning, your belief is your hand isn't functioning because you can't see it function. But what if you changed your perception and overruled the body in not the belief of what you see, but the belief in the power of who you be, in consciousness controlling one body, instead of what you see as the body controlling what your mind is thinking through all of your conscious awareness of the body. You take control. And so, in my belief, well, it's not just a belief, it's evidence in consciousness of who we are, that it is possible in how we see things. And if we're seeing it that way and feel it through thoughts and feelings, then our body is going to accept that to be, so you can move your hand once again. And in this learning that I've learned from myself through juggling is the next thing that would be rated into to the heights of functioning them brain components in the sense of learning another language. Now, there's many ways of doing this. As I say, the simple little things. And that's where to begin. It's not about juggling. It's not about learning another language. It's about noticing yourself and making changes to yourself. So if you're not in a place where you desire to be, then there's something that you got to change. Because everything that you've learned has not got you to where you want to be. So you need to learn something different. So as you learn to step forward with your right foot or write with your right hand, if you're all left-sided or the opposite, whatever it may be, if you lift a cup with your left hand, you'll start to lift it with your right. And learn to use both sides of your body. And what you're really doing is you're growing the equilibrium. Let me explain that a bit further. So let's put the brain into two parts. You've got a left side and a right side. And in the middle of that is the equilibrium. And the more connections that you make in who you are as a person. So if you write with your left hand and you go to try to write with your right and you've never written with your right hand, then it's going to become difficult for your body to connect to the brain to do that. Now, if you practice with your right hand, what you find is there's a growth in equilibrium, so it'll widen out, which means then there's bigger connections from the left side to the right side of the brain. So when you learn to write with your right hand, that equilibrium will spread out, creating new neural links from one side of the brain to the other side of the brain. So your brain's functioning more. And with this, because your equilibrium is widened and your body and mind, brain is operating so much in coherence and in balance, you get that in your life, in everything that you do. And the more aware of it that you are, the better it is for you. Now, there's simpler ways of doing it, but they're hard. Like sitting, meditating, in stillness, overpowering that ego that wants you to move, that wants you to do anything that will disturb you from your stillness. You'll even find people outside of you that will join into your ego that will try to disturb your stillness. And so, going back to juggling, which was my choice, and it's something that I like to do. I was always called a clown, Bobo the clown. So why not make something of that? Of everything that I've learned in my life, of everything that I've been ridiculed about, in how I speak, how I be, I make it work for me. And because everybody else thinks something of it, that means nothing to me, but something that I can create from, which I do. And so I learned to juggle. And when I learned to juggle, I have many different things related to the juggling, from colours to specific balls that I would choose in specific timing, and emotions, thoughts, feelings that relates to all that. To close my eyes and to choose a colour without looking. It all has a relationship to who I am. the juggling, hand and eye coordination. And so that leads me to, as I learn to juggle, what I wanted to do, as I found within me, is learn something more about the juggling. And so I would move on to juggle off the wall. And then I would move on to switching. As I would juggle off the wall and back to just juggling, and back to the wall, and back to juggling. And I could see the growth within me in here, but was happening out here. And so from there, I moved on to juggling off the ground. And from there, I've moved on to switching the three around. Now, I'm at that stage of, one of them stages is moving from ground to air. I have to manage more. But doing it the opposite way, from air to ground, or from the wall to the air to the ground, is manageable. Now, I'm not saying it's brilliant, but it's manageable. And it's something that I would have seen at the beginning as something that was impossible. But I like to look at myself as an experiment in life, and everything that I do. Everything that I'm doing, I'm thinking about things that I could do to improve who I am. As I hold coffee here, I don't just drink the coffee. I'm thinking about, how many times have I had coffee today? Am I taking too much coffee? How is it beneficial to me? How is it not? And this is constantly going on in my mind, 24/7. Some will call it overthinking. And maybe so. But I can sit down and cut off all that in meditation. So I don't mind so much. But when I'm overthinking, as it could be seen, I'm making use of them thoughts as myself as an experiment. Experimenting with the world as I see it and how it is within me. So I can grow a wider equilibrium, so I can use more and more and more of my brain to see what is possible. Because to me, from what I've seen, where I've been, anything's possible. Absolutely anything. And to some that could be impossible to see, depending on where your mindset has been. So for today, my advice is, learn something new. Grow in you from out here. Use out here to grow in here, in who you be. This happy Chapa, love and peace.